Hey guys, what's going on? In this video today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting our stock brake calipers that's all rusty and nasty, and we're going to turn them into something beautiful. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be going from the old rusty calipers, and we're going to be painting them bright red. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chalk the wheels. So you're going to do, chalk one wheel here, and do the same thing for the other side. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the car, we're going to put it in neutral, or what you're going to do is you're going to put it in park if you have an automatic. So with our transmission in neutral, what you're going to do is you're going to get the e-brake and put it down so the rear wheels can spin freely. So the next step what you have to do is you have to jack the car and raise it up in the air. Now you can check your owner's manual to find out exactly where to jack the car up, and as soon as you do that, you can get it lifted up and we can take the wheels off. Now if you're not comfortable with taking your wheels off and jacking the car in the air, don't attempt this. I don't want to see any people, doing anything stupid and trying to put everything back together and it not working. So only if you're confident in doing this, try it out. So if you're following your manufacturer specifications, you're not going to have a problem with your jacks. Now for my car, what they want is they want the jack stand right here, supporting it right on the pinch weld. So now you have the car in the air, the next step is to get the wheel off. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting our impact wrench. We're going to get it on the stud and we're going to take these off. Now if you also have a security nut like this, and here this one is different than the other lugs. So this one here won't work. So you have to make sure you have to get this one too and you have the key for it as well. Now I like keeping one of these lugs down here on the bottom. I like keeping it on there until we have every other bolt off. So you have to keep it on there nice and loose. And see how it's still on? So you leave that and you move on to the next. Now with that bolt that we just took off right here and kept it on loose, what it's doing is it's holding the wheel on the actual hub. So we're going to get these, put those aside, and then we're going to push this so it's on there, and we're going to take this off by hand. Now with the wheel like this, you can take it off, and you have access to behind here. Now as you can tell back here, it's very dirty and it's not really a clean area to work with. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get a power washer, you can get a hose or whatever, and just spray this down and clean everything up. So now that this is all cleaned off, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the caliper off and the bracket that it mounts to. So in order to do that, there's two slider pins up top here that you have to remove, and then there's two bolts behind that that are holding and securing the bracket down. So you have to make sure at this point your brake, your emergency brake isn't on, because if it is, this is going to be a pain in the butt to take off. So for my car, I need a 12 and 17 mil wrench for me to take the slider pin bolt off of the slider pin. You have to do this for the top and the bottom bolt. So now that this bolt here and the other one appears loose, you can take those out, and the caliper here we can take off. Just like that. Now the next step is to take the pads off. So one on the outside and one on the inside, and make sure that you don't lose track of which one goes where. So this one's on the inside, this one's on the outside. So what you have to do is you have to just, put these down and keep track of which way they go. So our next step is you have to remove this bracket right here. And to do that, you have to take off the two bolts on the back side of this. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to take off this bolt up top here and the other bolt down here. Now these two bolts are holding the bracket down onto the knuckle, and we're going to be taking them off. So there's one, and just remove the other one, and we can take this off. So now we can take this off and start cleaning this. Now before we start doing that, what we have to do is you have to take this and this guy here off. Now what these are, they go onto this onto the bracket. What they do is they allow the pads to slide in and out of there when you put lube on here. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be getting this bracket here And this caliper, all this, we're going to sand it down, clean it up until it's bare metal. And then once we're at that stage, what we're going to do is we're going to paint it. So what I'm going to be using today to clean this caliper and the bracket up is a Dremel and a drill with a wire wheel. So what we did is we used a Dremel and a wire wheel, and we got most of the imperfections, dirt, and extra paint that's still been on the bracket and the caliper. We also washed it, sprayed it down, and dried it. So we just have to make sure that all the parts that we don't want painted are masked off. So like this, the sliders, and other parts on the brakes. And as soon as we get that done, we're ready to start painting. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab some tape and mask up these sliders so they don't get painted. And you're going to want to do the same thing for the other one. So now that we have the sliders over here masked off, what we're going to do is we're going to use some VHT Caliper cleaner. And what we're going to do is we're going to spray it over the entire surfaces that we're going to be painting. So what this does, it's basically an alcohol, and it removes all the extra dirt and everything that we missed, so that when we go to paint it, everything's nice and clean. So what we're going to be using to paint the brakes today is VHT Caliper paint. Now the stuff, it comes in many different colors. You can pick it up in blue, gold, orange, whatever you want. And yeah, it's basically all the same stuff. So give the can a shake and you can go start spraying. Now for the first coat, you want to just mist it on. You don't want it too thick. Because the way this stuff works is you want a nice thin coat for the next layers to grab onto. So while the bracket right now is drying, what we can do is we can start masking up the brake caliper. Now there's a couple parts you want to mask up. The first one is the bleeder valve, right here. What this does is allows the system to be bled should you have a problem or if you ever have to maintain your brakes. They use this and unscrew it to let air or brake fluid out. So we're going to mask that off to make sure we don't get any on there. Another thing that we're going to want to mask up is the handbrake mechanism. So that's at the back. What we're going to be doing is just put tape on the back side of there and covering all that up. So we're going to do the same thing as the rear bracket. We're going to start misting some red paint onto the caliper. So after the first coat is dried, what we can do now is we can apply a second light coat onto the bracket. Now for the second coat, you want to try and get all the areas that you didn't get the first time. First test shot on the side, and then we'll start spraying. Now while we wait for this to dry, what we can do as well is we can put a second coat of paint onto the caliper. Now we'll wait about 15 minutes, let both of these coats to dry, and then we'll come back and hit it with a third. Alright guys, so now that the second coat is dried up, what we can do now is we can move it like this and get some of the different angles that we weren't able to get from before. So as you can tell, the sides over here and even the back side here, it's still silver and doesn't have red on it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hit that and get the entire thing to look the same color. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move the caliper a little bit and see if we can get some different angles. So we put a 4th coat of paint on this, and right now we're really happy with the finish. It's nice and red and you can't really see any silver underneath. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this back on the car, and we're going to put our brakes back together. So to put everything back together, what we have to do is first take off everything that we masked. So remove this. Remove this masking around the bleeder valve. And it's really important to keep this on the actual bleeder valve. The dust cap prevents anything from getting inside there. What we have to do next is remove the tape from the sliders. And now we have to start putting everything back together. With the brakes apart, this is a perfect time to inspect and re-lubricate the slider pins, the piston, or the brake pads before we start putting everything back together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to attach the bracket onto the back of the knuckle. So to do that, what you have to do is you have to get your 2 bolts, your bracket, and you're going to attach it from the rear. I'm going to move the caliper here out of the way so I can try and show you. So you have to put the bracket up in here and replace the 2 bolts that go up behind this. Now for my car, one is right here, and the other one is down here on the bottom. Right in there. So you're going to screw both of those in, and then we're going to go and attach the pads and everything else after that. So now at this point, what you're going to do is you're going to get a torque wrench, and you're going to tighten these 2 bolts, the ones that we just put in. You're going to tighten them down to the torque spec that the manufacturer gave out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to attach both of these back onto the bracket. So what I'm using is 3M copper anti-seize, and what I'm doing with it is I'm going to lubricate both of those so the pads can slide freely as soon as you press the brake. Now what this is also doing is it's creating an anti-noise barrier. So instead of having metal on metal down here, inside of here with the pad, sliding in and out whenever you apply the brake, it's going to be metal on this anti-seize, and it's not going to make any noise. So you're just going to put a little dab down there, and you're going to do the same thing for the other side. A little dab in there. So you're then going to go here, put them in, and mount these back onto the car. So your next step now is to put the brake pads back onto the bracket. So what you do is you grab the appropriate one for the appropriate side, and you just put them back in the way they were. One on one side, and one on the other. Just like that. So now that you have the brake pads on, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to put the caliper back onto here. So what you do is you grab it, and put it back like this. So now that you're at this step, what you're going to do is you're going to grab your bolts, and you're going to put them back up here on the back side of the slider. Now after you have these hand tight, what you're going to do is you want to make sure that you torque it as well to the manufacturer specifications. So now that you're at this point, what you can do is you can clean up any of the caliper that you got dirty when putting everything back together. With a wheel like this, it's really difficult to see what we've done. Even when we're spinning, it's hard to see that we have a painted caliper. Now, it's a lot easier to see that you have a painted caliper if you have a rim with a lot less spokes that's more open. Now, as you can see with a wheel style like this, if you have a painted caliper, it's much more noticeable. It stands out and it really grabs your attention. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like what you see and you want to see more, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.